Clever code is bad code. Easiest is bestest. Welcome to StartupHakk. I'm Spencer Thomason, and here at StartupHakk, we train software developers in our licensed coding bootcamps and build custom software solutions for companies. With a decade of executive leadership as a fractional CTO and 25 years in software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. So today we're going to talk about clever code and the hidden pitfalls. Now, when I was an undergrad, Leetcode broke my brain. I would see top solutions of esoteric one-liners and wrongly think, how do I ever get this good? These solutions, while clever, often left me puzzled and overwhelmed. This is commonly called code golfing, a fun hobby but very far from good code. Now, everybody, including those on Leetcode, knows that this isn't good code. In the industry, it's the worst code one could possibly write. Clever code may look impressive, but it's often unreadable and unmaintainable. However, on the other end of the spectrum, I realized that the clearest of code was actually the hardest to write. So there's a challenge of writing really good, clear code. Now, it made sense retrospectively. Reviewing the code of a senior staff software engineer was much easier to follow compared to the code of an entry-level, level 3 engineer. Now, clear code was structured, logical, and easy to understand, but achieving this clarity was no easy task. The power of clear code, for better or for worse, was made fully clear to me after a certain incident at work. So once I wrote this piece of language in C++, and it's a language that's generally hard to read anyways, but I started with just two files, an H and a CPP, and all the implementation code into just these two files. The result was of this giant, disgusting piece of spaghetti on the inside, but a perfectly working program on the outside. Now, this would never get past a code review of today. So the journey to today is to get to clear code. What we did here is we took this implementation and we split it into 30 different files. At the time, I was working at a company that used stack diffs, which also happened to be my personal record for the length of chain difference. So we took this code and we broke it down to make it much better and much easier to read. Now, each one of these sections, of these 30 different sections, were very basic and some very obvious edge cases were covered. Now, each one took me quite a few iterations of code cleaning and refactoring and more. And it took a lot of effort and a lot more than I expected to achieve this clear code, especially for such a large program. The result, though, was a beautiful landing of the data enrichment, and it was easy to read clear code. While I was proud of it, there was suddenly a problem when I talked to my manager about it. And this brings me to the perception of clear code. While I understand how complex this was, when it comes to performance reviews, this code looks trivial. It looks too easy and too simple. I would recommend writing an implementation doc of this module just so we can demonstrate that this was actually quite complex. So I was a little shocked. This wasn't some startup. This was one of the biggest companies in the world, known for their engineering culture. Now I understood why big tech seemingly had so many docs. Half the docs I wrote didn't need to be written, except that they did because I wanted to get a raise and be promoted. So the main point here is that great code is very clear and readable. There's a popular saying that debugging code is twice as hard as writing it. So if you have bad code, debugging it becomes even harder. So it's the reason why when ChatGPT outputs some hogwash, it's easier just to reprompt it or write it from scratch yourself instead of trying to figure out the errors in the buggy code. So my last thoughts here on clear code. The only way to get better at writing clear, readable code is just writing a lot of code while strictly following a clear style guideline. Also, having more experienced devs review my code with a magnifying glass and to be willing to criticize and help me make it better. It was agony to get tons of comments and the nitpicks about seemingly pointless styles in the beginning, but it really paid off in the end. So coding style is more important than I even expected in the beginning. Starting as a software engineer began from being on the product-minded end of the spectrum and moved towards the technical-minded side of the spectrum. I had to start coding solely to start a business, so initially I only cared about getting code as a tool, just getting it to work. Now, this resulted in really crappy and unmaintainable code, and some of this code I still get bit by every once in a while today. It's only through more experience with writing code and working within teams that the importance of clear, readable code became more obvious. It's not just about me. This is an obvious revelation to anyone who's been writing code in the industry for a long time. Now, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on Founders Mode? Everybody has an opinion here, so I'd love to hear yours. Send me a comment down below and make sure you like and subscribe. Here at StartupHakk, we love to train software developers in our licensed coding bootcamps, as well as to build custom software solutions for companies. So like and subscribe and check us out, and we'll talk to you next time.